Ambient sounds of deep space, the low hum of a starship engine, faint beeps from control panels, and the occasional static crackle of distant radio chatter. The audio begins softly, lulling the listener into a false sense of calm. Do you hear that? That gentle hum in the background? It's comforting, isn't it? Like the sound of your own heartbeat when you're lying in bed, just on the edge of sleep. But don't get too comfortable, because where we're going, comfort is the last thing you'll find. It started with a discovery, a twin Earth, a planet so eerily similar to our own that it felt like looking into a cosmic mirror. We called it Terra Omega. Sounds poetic, doesn't it? Like something out of a dream. But dreams have a way of twisting into nightmares, don't they? The hum grows louder, more insistent, as if pulling the listener deeper into the story. Terra Omega was located in the Goldilocks zone of a star not too far from our own. It had water, breathable air, and land masses that mirrored Earth's continents almost perfectly. Scientists were ecstatic. Politicians saw dollar signs. And the rest of us? We were just curious. What would it be like to walk on another Earth? To see what might have been? A team was assembled. Military personnel, scientists, engineers, the best of the best. They boarded the Aegis Dawn, a state-of-the-art exploration vessel, and set course for Terra Omega. I was part of that team. My name doesn't matter. None of our names do. Not anymore. The hum fades slightly, replaced by the soft whoosh of atmospheric entry, the sound of wind rushing past metal hulls. When we arrived, the planet looked peaceful, serene even. Blue oceans, green forests, snow-capped mountains. It was all so familiar. Too familiar. Like a photograph that's been edited just enough to make you uneasy, though you can't quite put your finger on why. We landed near what appeared to be a city, or what was left of one. The buildings were ancient, crumbling, overtaken by vines and moss. There were no signs of life, no animals, no insects, not even birdsong. Just silence. A heavy, oppressive silence that seemed to press against your ears, your chest, your very soul. The sound of boots crunching on gravel, distant echoes of footsteps in an empty space. As we explored, we found evidence of advanced technology, machines that had long since rusted into uselessness, devices whose purposes we could only guess at. And then there were the carvings. They were everywhere, on walls, on floors, even etched into the bark of trees. Strange symbols, spirals, and shapes that made your eyes ache if you looked at them for too long. Some of the scientists thought they were a language. Others said they were art. Me? I thought they were warnings. The sound of a faint whisper, barely audible, like wind moving through hollow spaces. The first night we set up camp inside one of the larger structures. It looked like it might have been a temple or a courthouse once, with high ceilings and pillars that reached toward the sky. We lit lanterns, set up sleeping bags, and tried to ignore the feeling that we were being watched. That's when we heard it, the scratching, soft at first like nails on glass, then louder, more insistent. It was coming from the walls, the floors, the ceiling, everywhere. One of the soldiers, a guy named Ramirez, laughed it off. Probably just rats, he said. But there were no rats on Terra Omega. No animals at all, remember? The scratching grows louder, more frantic, interspersed with faint, guttural clicks. We didn't sleep much that night. By morning, the scratching had stopped, but something else had changed. The carvings, they'd moved. Symbols that had been on one wall were now on another. Shapes that had been etched into the floor were now on the ceiling. At first, we thought it was a prank, someone trying to mess with the rest of us, but no one admitted to it. And the look in their eyes told me they weren't lying. The sound of heavy breathing, quickened footsteps, the distant echo of something dragging across stone. Over the next few days, things got worse. People started hearing whispers. soft, unintelligible murmurs that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. Equipment malfunctioned without explanation. Food supplies spoiled overnight. And then there were the shadows, dark shapes that flickered at the edges of our vision, always just out of reach, just out of focus. One night, Dr. Harlow, one of the lead scientists, went missing. We found her the next morning, or what was left of her. Her body was twisted, broken as if she'd fallen from a great height. But there were no cliffs, no ledges, nothing she could have fallen from. And her face. God, her face. It was frozen in a scream, her eyes wide with terror, her mouth open as if she'd seen something so horrifying that her mind simply shattered. The sound of a woman's scream, distant and echoing, fading into silence. After that, people started losing it. Ramirez, the guy who joked about rats, shot himself in the head, said he couldn't take the whispers anymore. Another soldier, Collins, disappeared during his watch. We found his boots, neatly placed side by side, but no sign of him. It was like the planet was picking us off one by one. And then we saw them, the creatures. They came at night, slithering out of the darkness like living shadows. Their bodies were wrong, twisted, unnatural. They had too many limbs, too many eyes, and their skin shimmered like oil on water. They didn't walk or crawl. They moved in a way that defied logic, like they were slipping between dimensions, here one moment and gone the next. The sound of wet, slithering movements, punctuated by guttural growls and clicking noises. We tried to fight them. Bullets didn't work. Fire didn't work. Nothing worked. They weren't physical, not entirely. They were something else, something older than time, older than the universe itself. And they were hungry. I don't know how many of us made it back to the ship. 5, maybe 6. The rest, well, let's just say they didn't die quickly. Or quietly. The sound of panicked breathing, overlapping voices shouting, and the deafening roar of engines igniting. We left Terra Omega behind, but it didn't leave us. The whispers followed us back to the ship. The shadows lingered in the corners of our vision. And the dreams. Oh, God, the dreams. Every night I see them. Those creatures. Those things. Watching me. Waiting. The sound of a clock ticking. Slow and deliberate, growing louder with each tick. You're probably thinking this is just a story. A creepy little tale to keep you up at night. But tell me, do you feel it? That heaviness in the air? That prickle on the back of your neck? Do you hear the scratching? The whispers? The sound of faint scratching growing louder and closer. Maybe it's nothing, or maybe they found you too. After all, they're not bound to Terra Omega. They're not bound to anything. They're everywhere. Under your bed, in your closet, just beyond the edge of the light. So go ahead, turn off the lights, close your eyes, try to sleep, but don't be surprised if you wake up to the sound of scratching. Or worse, if you don't wake up at all. The sound of a sudden sharp gasp, followed by a silence. Then faintly the sound of wet, slithering movements receding into the distance. The silence lingers, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the faint sound of static, like a distant radio signal trying to come through. The tension builds, the quiet itself becoming oppressive. You're still here, aren't you? Listening? Waiting? Maybe you think you're safe because this is just a story. Just words carried through speakers or headphones. But stories have power. Words have weight. And some things don't care whether you believe in them or not. The static sharpens for a moment, like a voice almost breaking through, before fading again. After we left Terra Omega, we thought we'd escaped. We thought we were safe. But safety is an illusion, a fragile thing that shatters the moment you realize the universe doesn't care about you. That it's vast and cold and filled with horrors your mind wasn't built to comprehend. It started small, Little things. Shadows that didn't belong. Reflections in mirrors that lingered a second too long. One of the engineers, Patel, swore he saw something moving in the ventilation ducts. We laughed it off at first. Stress, we said, trauma. But deep down, we all knew. We had brought something back with us. The sound of metal creaking, faint footsteps echoing in an empty corridor. The Aegis Dawn was a big ship. Too big sometimes. There were places where the lights didn't quite reach, where the shadows pooled like ink. Places where you could swear you heard breathing, even when you were alone. We avoided those places, at least we tried to. One night, I woke up to the sound of crying. It was soft, muffled, like someone trying to hold it in but failing. I followed the sound, thinking maybe one of the others had finally cracked. But when I got to the source, there was no one there. Just an empty hallway and the damn scratching noise coming from inside the walls. The scratching returns, faint at first, then growing louder, more erratic, as if whatever's making it is desperate to get out. By the third week, we had lost 2 more people. Patel disappeared during a routine maintenance check. We found his tools scattered on the floor, but no sign of him. No blood, no struggle, just gone. Then there was Sergeant Mills. He locked himself in the med bay and refused to come out. When we finally broke the door down, he was dead. His eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling, and his mouth was stuffed full of paper. Pages torn from his own journal. Whatever he'd seen, whatever he'd written about, he had decided it was better to choke on it than let anyone else read it. The sound of pages rustling, followed by the faint, distorted sound of a man whispering, too low to make out the words. We should have turned back, headed for Earth or anywhere else. But the captain insisted we press on. We're humanity's best, she said. We don't run from the unknown. Brave words, stupid words. She was the next to go. We found her in the command center, slumped over the controls. At first, we thought she'd had a heart attack. But then we saw her face. Her eyes were missing. Not gouged out, just gone. Smooth skin where they should have been, like they'd never existed at all. And her hands. God, her hands. They were clenched so tightly around the armrest that her fingernails had snapped off, leaving bloody crescents behind. The sound of nails scraping against metal, slow and deliberate, sending chills down the spine. That's when we realized it wasn't just the creatures. It was the planet itself. Terra Omega wasn't just alive, it was aware. And it had marked us, claimed us. We weren't explorers anymore. We were prey. The hum of the ship's engines grows louder, more erratic, as if struggling to maintain stability. We tried to send a distress signal, but every time we did, the equipment would fail. Static, feedback. Sometimes we'd hear voices in the static, faint, distorted, like someone calling for help. But the voices weren't ours. They didn't belong to anyone on the ship. And the things they said, they weren't meant for human ears. The static returns, layered with faint, overlapping whispers, growing louder and more chaotic before cutting off abruptly. By the time we reached the outer edge of our solar system, there were only 3 of us left. Me, Lieutenant Harris, and Dr. Vance. We didn't talk much. What was there to say? Every time we closed our eyes, we saw them. The creatures, the shapes, the spirals. They were burned into our minds, etched into our souls. Sleep became impossible. Food tasted like ash. Even breathing felt wrong, like the air itself was tainted. And then Harris. Harris started changing. The sound of labored breathing, interspersed with wet, squelching noises like flesh being stretched and torn. It started with his skin. Small patches that turned black and shiny like obsidian. Then his eyes. They turned milky white, unseeing, but somehow aware. He stopped speaking, stopped eating, just sat there. staring at nothing, whispering to himself in a language none of us recognized. One night, I woke up to find him standing over me, his head tilted at an unnatural angle, his mouth moving silently. I didn't sleep after that. The sound of a faint, rhythmic tapping like fingers drumming on glass, growing louder and more insistent. When Harris finally transformed, it wasn't quick. It wasn't clean. His body twisted, contorted, bones snapping like dry twigs. His screams, they didn't sound human. They didn't sound like anything I'd ever heard before. And when it was over, what was left of him wasn't Harris anymore. It wasn't anything. Just a mass of writhing limbs and glistening black flesh, pulsing like a heartbeat. The sound of wet, organic movements, accompanied by a low, guttural growl. I ran. I don't know how, but I made it to the escape pod. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I launched myself into the void, leaving the Aegis Dawn and whatever was left of it behind. For days, I drifted in silence, waiting to die. But I didn't. A passing freighter picked up my signal and brought me back to Earth. The sound of a ship docking, hissing airlocks, and distant voices murmuring. They called me a hero, the sole survivor of Terra Omega. They wanted to know what happened, what we found. I told them what I could, but they didn't believe me. Not really. They said it was trauma, hallucinations brought on by stress. But I know the truth, and now, so do you. The sound of a clock ticking again, slow and deliberate, each tick louder than the last. You see, Terra Omega isn't just a place. It's an idea, a seed. And once it's planted, it grows. In your mind, in your dreams, in the spaces between the light and the dark. You can't escape it. You can't fight it. All you can do is wait. The scratching returns louder and closer than ever, as if it's coming from just behind the listener. Do you hear that? The scratching? The whispers? Maybe it's nothing, or maybe they've already found you. After all, you listened, and that's all it takes. The sound of a sudden sharp gasp, followed by a complete silence. Then faintly, the sound of wet, slithering movements creeping closer before cutting off abruptly. The silence stretches, long and suffocating, broken only by the faintest hint of static. It lingers just enough to make you uncomfortable, like something is waiting, watching, biding its time. You're still here, aren't you? Still listening. I wonder, why? Is it curiosity, or is it something deeper? Something primal? Maybe you can feel it too, that weight in the air, that itch at the back of your mind, like you're not alone. Like something's behind you, just out of sight. The sound of a faint breath exhaled slowly, almost imperceptibly close to the listener's ear. I thought escaping Terra Omega would be the end of it, that I could leave it all behind. But the truth is, you don't leave Terra Omega. It leaves a mark on you, a stain that doesn't wash away. And once it's on you, it spreads, like a virus, like a parasite, feeding on your fear, your thoughts, your very essence. The sound of faint whispers returns, layered and overlapping, unintelligible but insistent, as if trying to communicate something just beyond comprehension. At first, I thought it was just me. The nightmares, the shadows, the whispers. I thought maybe I'd gone mad. Wouldn't you? But then I started noticing things. Little things. People around me acting strange. A neighbor who used to wave every morning now standing motionless at his window, staring at nothing for hours. A coworker whose reflection didn't quite match her movements. My own shadow stretching longer than it should, twisting in ways that didn't make sense. The sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, pacing back and forth across an empty room. And then there were the disappearances. They started small, pets vanishing from backyards, a child going missing in the middle of the night. But it didn't stop there. Entire families, entire neighborhoods, just gone. No signs of struggle, no evidence left behind. Just empty houses, empty streets, like they'd never existed at all. I tried to warn people. I told them about Terra Omega, about what we found or what found us. But they didn't listen. They laughed, called me crazy. Some even pitied me. But pity doesn't stop the scratching. Pity doesn't stop the whispers. And pity sure as hell doesn't stop them. The sound of wet, slithering movements grows louder, closer, accompanied by faint clicking noises like claws tapping against metal. I've been running ever since. From city to city, country to country, trying to stay ahead of it. But you can't outrun something that isn't bound by space or time. Something that isn't physical. They're not creatures, not really. They're more like ideas. Concepts made flesh. And once you've seen them, once you've felt their presence, they become part of you. Part of your reality. The sound of distant screams distorted and echoing, it's fading into the background. Do you know what the worst part is? It's not the fear. It's not the paranoia. It's the knowing. Knowing that no matter where you go, no matter how far you run, they'll always find you. Because they're already here. In the cracks of your mind. In the spaces between your thoughts. In the dark corners of your room. Where the light doesn't reach. The sound of a clock ticking again. Faster this time, each tick sharper, more urgent. You might think you're safe because you're listening to this from the comfort of your home, your car, wherever you are. But safety is an illusion. Do you feel it yet? That prickle on the back of your neck? That heaviness in your chest? That feeling that you're being watched? The sound of faint breathing again, closer this time, almost tangible. Maybe you're thinking about turning this off, about walking away, but it's too late for that. You've already heard too much. You've already let them in. They're patient, you see, they don't need to rush. They'll wait until you're alone, until the lights are off, until you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince yourself it's all in your head. The sound of soft scratching begins again, impossibly close, as if coming from inside the walls. But it's not in your head. It's real. They're real. And they're hungry. The scratching grows louder, more frantic, interspersed with guttural growls and distorted whispers. I wish I could tell you how to stop them, how to fight back. But I don't know. I don't think anyone does. All I know is that once you've seen them, once you've felt their presence, there's no going back. You can try to ignore it, try to pretend everything's fine. But they'll remind you. Oh, they'll remind you. The sound of a door creaking open slowly, followed by heavy, deliberate footsteps approaching. So go ahead, turn off the lights, close your eyes, try to sleep. But when you do, pay attention. Listen closely. To the scratching, to the whispers, to the sound of something moving just outside your door. And if you hear it, if you feel it, don't look, don't move, don't breathe. Because if you do, they'll know. The sound of a sudden, sharp knock, followed by complete silence. Then, faintly, the sound of wet, slithering movements receding into the distance, leaving only the oppressive hum of silence behind